Well, hello everyone. I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to Center Court and our session on the Anderson School of Management at UCLA in Los Angeles, California. We have in the house Gary Fraser, the Associate Dean of the MBA program. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, John. It's great to be chatting with you.
Let's talk a little bit about things that people might not expect about Anderson and UCLA and LA for that matter. I think one of the things that is often overlooked, particularly by people who aren't familiar with the area, is that everyone knows it's an entertainment capital of the world and a place where blockbuster movies are made. But what people underappreciate is how you have your own Silicon Valley of sorts.
Yeah, LA is an interesting city. There's certainly cities. I'm a native New Yorker, so New York is definitely a very industry-rich market. LA is both industry-rich, but it's also a lot of individual wealth, and so that means that there's a lot of private equity dollars, a lot of venture capital dollars. So we have a lot of our students that are focused on finance, certainly in the traditional investment bank, but also in the terms of financing projects, even credit in some cases. But you're right, we have students that maybe want to finance films in the future, or they want to maybe lead the creative process of filmmaking. But then we have folks that want to work in healthcare. We have a lot of folks that are interested in tech because of Silicon Valley. We tend to be a very balanced school with regard to that because there are so many different things that LA taps into. It's the second, largest city in the United States, but also California is the, people say it's the fifth. If it was a country, it'd be the fifth largest economy in the world. So there's so many opportunities from that perspective. And then LA is just amazing because you can drive two hours and go skiing, or drive 2 hours and go hiking, or drive 2 hours and go surfing. And or actually from LA, you could drive like 15 minutes from campus to go surfing. So it has this whole range, and I think that's important because today's business school student, our typical student, their average age is in the late 20s, and they've worked hard, and they're going to work hard when they're here. But one thing that we know our students value the most is this ability to balance working hard, but taking some time for themselves and their friends, and to kind of have that approach where they can, relax as well as recharge.
Yeah, and to be part of a world-class university. This is something that's often overlooked. There are some standalone business schools or schools that are just on the periphery of a university, but UCLA is one of the gems in America, a public Ivy, and lots to do, lots to see, lots to experience. It's why Randy Newman said, "I love LA," and why Frank Sinatra sang, "LA is my lady," right?
That's right. That's right. I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's something that we really made a prominent part of our strategic plan we developed a few years back. And that was to look at the fact that we were part of the #1 public university, which also means that we have a social mission as well, when you think about public education versus private education. And so it's incorporated in our plan to think about what is our responsibility in terms of the social good as a business school. How do we make sure we have access as a public university, similar to, our mother institution, UCLA. And it also calls for us to have more partnerships. We have a great School of Global Public Health. We've already had, great relationships with the law school because we have a dual degree program there, as well with the medicine school. But, this allows us to really further engage. Our students have this benefit of taking classes anywhere in the university because of this public school approach. And so there's a uniqueness, a richness in terms of the variety that students get because of it. But you're exactly right. This is a big part of who we are as being part of UCLA. We're called UCLA Anderson for a reason.
And let's not forget that your students also have the benefit of strolling under palm trees with shorts and sandals in January and February, unlike some people who are trudging through snow and dodging cars.
Yeah, I have to tell you, John, I think the pandemic affected us more than a typical business school. Like I said, I know in New York, in most places in the country, there's a hibernation period, right? Once daylight savings happens and it's dark when you get up, it's dark when you go home, and you just go to work and go home. And here there is this nature that's all around us, but also the weather, and people planned. There's no slowdown, and so I think it affected our students more. I remember talking to the class that started at the end of, they're finishing up their first year, but when they started, they said, we're ready for this. We've been locked up for 2.5 years, and we're really ready for this experience and this experience here at Anderson.
Yeah. I often think also that one of the hallmarks of your MBA program is this. Yes, you have incredible faculty, because after all, faculty are attracted to a world-class university in a great city like LA. And California has long been a magnet for talent all over the world. So that's a given. But what I think is a real hallmark of your school is how Anderson has been able to get top-rate practitioners in sports and entertainment and in technology to come to campus, get in your classroom, and work side by side with students.
No, that's so true. I mean, people like Peter Guber runs how many sports teams? Just this amazing class called The Agony and Ecstasy of Sports Management, which is typically one of the most favored and popular classes.
And you're not going to get that anywhere else in the
You're
world.
not,
Okay?
and I think that's one of the benefits of being in such a large city. Few cities can offer that. And also what we can do is offer that range, right? Like you said, from sports entertainment to media entertainment, real estate. We were having our A days, we call them, for our new admits last month. And, we invite significant others. And there was one significant other who went to I'll just say a top 5 business school, and after sitting through one of these mock classrooms with one of our real estate professors, said, I'm going to tell my significant other she needs to come to Anderson because he's going to help us be successful real estate entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
And I
you
think
got the
that
real estate's big in LA. Let me just tell you.
it's big, and I think that diversity, right, of all these different areas people go into, and that's why we do have such an entrepreneurial community, because there's so many different ways you can be an entrepreneur, whether it's in tech, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in healthcare. And so I think the fact that we draw on these great practitioners that are working during the day and maybe teaching an evening or afternoon class, it's unique that most top business schools in cities can't really offer, or more regional areas can't offer.
I remember you even had at one point, and you may still have this, Google executives who come in and teach a regular class.
Yeah, we had a class where students, got a prompt from someone pretty senior at Google, and then, the team that was kind of selected as the best team actually flew up to Mountain View to do a presentation of their findings. I remember one year it was Google Wi-Fi, launching Google Wi-Fi. And so it's a great way to get very valuable but cheap labor to assess certain opportunities. But students love it. They love that ability to have that exposure and engage with people, and it creates kind of this exciting but pressure for us to say, how do we bring in all these CEOs? Because they have that craving for it. But this is one of those places where everyone kind of comes through LA. If they're not based here, they'll come through it, and it just gets some unique exposure for our students.
Yeah, that's really true. So Gary, if you were to say what the 3 hallmarks of the MBA program are at Anderson, what would you say? What would the three big things that make a difference?
Well, in terms of what we offer, again, I think it's a very customized, balanced approach to getting your MBA, but also choosing the right career for you. Each student gets assigned a career advisor to talk about what they want to do. Our typical student meets with a career advisor pretty much on a monthly basis. So there's this ongoing relationship. We have a target size of around 300 students in our class, and so it's manageable in the sense that we collectively know every one of our students, so there isn't that loss. We also, to your point earlier, have this great relationship with not only our tenured faculty, but also with these great adjuncts who are professionals in the world of work. And so the academic delivery, I think, is very unique. We can offer some unique classes And even if there is a class that someone can't find, they can find it within UCLA, the institution. So we have some students that are interested in media entertainment taking classes in the film school. We have people interested in sustainability taking classes in the School of Engineering. We have people that are interested in global public health and healthcare taking classes in our School of Global Public Health. So this range that we're offering is unprecedented in terms of it just being 300 students and having this combination of this customized support, but
Mm.
also this breadth in a large public institution. So I think that's very unique as well too. And I do think that to your point earlier, our faculty, they just bring some expertise. We're fortunate to draw great faculty. And some of the classes they've created in the last few years, like a tremendous class called Global Trends that just lets people know from a global perspective, what are we doing now and what should we be doing in the future? Because we really are trying to develop global leaders. We have all our students go through a leadership development program that prepares them to be better club leaders while they're here and practice those leadership skills now, but then take them to the real world when they graduate.
And I will say, I know your Parker Career Management Center is really world-class as well. The folks in there work really hard with the students to get them exactly the jobs that they want. And you've had a really successful track record in doing that.
Yeah, LA is it's different than some markets. It's not as institutional. And
Yeah.
so with a target of around 300 or so students, everyone's not going to go to one company or one industry. And so that's why these one-on-one conversations become so valuable. Students have their large market career search strategies, but they also have their unique one-off ones, whether it's a startup, whether it's a company that is regionally based, whether it's something where where they're coming from, because a big chunk of our students are outside of California and LA, and they may want to go back to those companies. And so it requires this relationship on two fronts: one with the student to understand what their goals are, but also with employers to understand where are their opportunities that maybe they're not broadcasting broadly because they just have one or two spots.
Right.
How do we tap into those opportunities and connect our students to them?
Right. Now, last time I was on campus, a new building was going up.
Yes,
It's probably finished by now, right?
it is. And it's funny. We opened it. There was a lot of fanfare, and then the pandemic happened. So now it still feels pretty new, which is
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
Um,
Right.
but it's a great facility, and one of the things we're actually doing, which we're excited about, is moving our core classes for our full-time MBAs into the new building. I think that we had them in some of the older buildings, which was fine, but our 4 sections that we'll have will fit nicely in these new classrooms. And I think that'll just help tighten the community that much more because they'll all be in the same space, this new building at the same time. But it's a great facility. It's allowed us to do so much more than what we were able to do before. There's a lot more individual and study group space for MBAs to kind of work on group projects. So what we do find is that students are here longer parts of the day because of that. Everyone's worried about the commute to wherever they have to go home, and this way is they know that they're going to come here in the morning, they'll be here all day, and they have access to everything that they need.
Yeah, that's really great. How would you describe the culture of the school, Gary? I mean, what adjectives would you use to really get a handle on that?
I think some of the ones that you hear at a lot of places like, collaborative and community, but I think the thing that makes it unique in Anderson is, we strive to understand, what makes us unique and different, and not just as a school, but as individuals. So each one of our incoming students are going to take an assessment called the Intercultural Development Inventory, which allows them to understand how do they react to people that are different than them, and how do they learn more about these differences,
Yeah.
and really change the dialogue from some people maybe having to adapt to others, but really we all need to figure out how do we adapt to each other. We all need to adjust to each other because the things we talk about are, valuing these differences, ensuring accountability in terms of what you say you're going to do, and managing the ambiguity that exists in terms of working with people on our projects. And we think that those things will allow students to, respectfully challenge each other when they need to, work through conflicts and disagreements so that when they go back in the world of work, they'll know how to engage with everybody, not just
Mm.
people that they're more comfortable engaging with, that may
Right.
be more like them. But how do you motivate someone who may be totally different than you? And so that's something that I think is unique to our environment. And I think our size allows us to have those conversations and have people engage with each other. We have small work teams that represent all these different measures of diversity. And so rather than working on a project together, we want those students to talk about their career paths together, to talk about how they need to grow their intercultural competence with each other. And so more intimate conversations that will lead people to be better teammates, better managers, better leaders.
And the size of the school, I think, is an important ingredient to the experience because, you're definitely not an MBA factory with 900 to 1,000 students,
Right.
and yet you have the critical mass to assure that kind of diversity that we're talking about, as well as a full and complete array of social and professional organizations and clubs to stretch your leadership muscles.
Yeah, it's actually a win-win. We have the critical mass to attract those firms that are looking for MBA talent, but it's also the situation where it's not crabs in a barrel where people are saying, I have to step on somebody to get this job, because they know that there's enough critical maths that's going to get those jobs. And so we find, all our students, and I know some schools will have so many students where they're competing against each other, and even sometimes if they're in the same firm in a summer internship, they're meeting each other for the first time because they're so big. Everyone knows everyone. You know every name in your class, but you also know everyone who's trying to do consulting or tech or banking or healthcare, because you're all working together. And that's through not only the structures we create from the career office in Parker, but also through the student club structure where people all are gathered together. So it ends up being kind of a team effort and saying, how do we get the wins? The wins from an Anderson perspective is how many get here, how many who want to get here get there, and how do we do it as a team? And I think that that's something that you can only do with the right size in terms of the class size of a program.
And there are plenty of schools that have consulting clubs or tech clubs or finance clubs. But I want to know, how many schools have a surfing club?
Exactly. Surfing club, outdoor adventure club. And then some students said, well, we should have an indoor adventure club too. We have a comedy club. I mean, it's a nice balance. Students definitely focus on the functions and industries they're interested in, but they have identity clubs, they have interest clubs. One of our more successful clubs is our wine club. They actually won a competition in the United States, and so they're actually representing the North American market in Bordeaux, France.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Impressive.
we have students that have such a range of interests that they bring it to the school, and they help others learn and grow in those spaces as well too.
And Gary, having met a bunch of your students over the years, I got to say, they're incredibly welcoming. They're fun to be with. They're natural extroverts in many cases. I mean, they're really pleasant people. So it's not like you're going to go into an urban environment and find, street fighters and sharp elbows.
Right.
Really, people are very welcoming. They're very supportive of each other. And I came away with that very strong impression every time I visited your campus.
Yeah, we're really bringing in. We're fortunate. We're bringing in good citizens of the world and great ambassadors. And I can tell you, I've worked at other top business schools, and I've never seen the engagement from a student population the way I do when the effort to kind of bring in the next class. So we
Yeah.
let our students really run with it. We have this great group called the Admissions Ambassador Corps. It's one of the most popular organizations on campus, and students really want to take the lead in terms of telling not only their story, but the Anderson story, and convincing folks why this could be the right place for them. And it's just natural. It's a natural enthusiasm and excitement, to your point. And it really makes a difference for students to really talk to someone who could be their potential peer and understand why they're so excited about being at Anderson.
Yeah. Now, Gary, let's do a little lightning round. I'm going to say something and you can come back at me.
Okay.
Analytics.
I'm sorry, analytics?
Business analytics. What are you
Business
doing?
analytics. We have lots of interest in that. We actually have a master's degree program in business analytics that feeds into our MBA program, so students can tap into a more intense, version of that if they want. So that's one of the pluses. Also, as a business school, we have other programs that specialize that. We also have that with financial engineering as well too.
which allows you a deeper portfolio of elective courses that MBAs can take, and
Exactly.
obviously expanded faculty with that deep kind of expertise.
Exactly.
Sustainability. What about sustainability?
So sustainability is something that we've done a great job of baking into the core. There's two things that we've baked into the core so that we used to have this mindset of sustainability requirement or global requirement. And now what we've done is looking at the content in the core and say, well, how does every class in the core have some aspect of sustainability? How does every content have some aspect about global so that our students are naturally all doing it versus saying that some are doing it? We have an amazing center run by a terrific faculty member, the Center for Sustainability, and it's just gotten so many awards because LA is a great market for that as well too, and we tend to just attract that global talent that's looking at sustainability from a global perspective, and so that's one of the things that's super popular with our students.
Yeah, so embedded in the curriculum in every course, in core course, sustainability and globalization. What about diversity, equity, inclusion? We touched on diversity a little earlier because LA is an incredibly diverse city.
It is.
So that is a big factor.
One thing I love about working at Anderson is we're just naturally diverse. I think that we
Yeah.
match the city. When you look at the city of LA and you look at folks that work here, we kind of match that. And I think it's very easy for our students to come in. I think one of the things that we do want to make sure everyone does is harness this power of diversity. I think people traditionally have had the mindset of diversity is the right thing to do. And what we're trying to make sure students understand is diversity makes things better. Diverse teams bring in different perspectives, and your work team will be better as long as you can connect on these similarities and differences as well too. And that's how you harness it. And so what we find is we're using this diverse population to create a safe, psychologically safe environment where people can share different aspects of who they are and how they relate to things. And they work better as teams because of that. So it's not the mindset of doing this because it makes us good citizens. We can do that much more good if we do align that way.
And let me just make a political statement. Regardless of what the Supreme Court says over the next few weeks, California is one of the most progressive states in America.
Mm-hmm.
And you can rest assured that thoughtful, liberal policies that welcome people and embrace people, it's a part of the whole California culture itself. And obviously UCLA is a key part of that.
Yeah, it's about building relationships. I mean, look, in California, we've already had Proposition 209, so we've already had certain things that have prepared us to react and respond. I think that's where it comes down to building relationships. Can you build relationships with people? Can you get a sense for environment? We know when students come to actually visit Anderson, then they see it and they get it. You can certainly make very nice videos and things like that, but when people actually come here, they talk to students, they see the diversity, they see how it's naturally embedded in what we do. That's the best anecdote for anyone having concerns. But I think, that's an environment we've been familiar with for a long time.
Okay, experiential learning. What's the best example of that in Anderson?
Experiential learning. We do a lot with our faculty on experiential learning. We actually had one of our professors think about sustainability and social change, take a group of students to Africa just to see what the environment was there and do projects. Our capstone project that students take, it's called Applied Management Research. They are in work teams. They are assigned a company or organization. Some are international. Well, they work on a real life project. I've judged things from a craft brewery to an organization that does hospice care. And students basically get matched up with the projects they're interested in doing. And they build these really great relationships with these organizations. And many times those organizations come back for another wave the following year. And so that's the capstone that's required for students to take before they graduate, because we think it's important to have a real, true experiential experience in terms of academically before they go back out into the world of work.
Now, Gary, I'm sure you're familiar with ChatGPT and you've probably have used it and played around with it. Now, some people are terrified of artificial intelligence and what it may mean for the world of work in the future.
Mhm.
And some people are thinking, my God, this is going to be incredible because it's a new technology. It will reduce the most mundane tasks that we
Yeah.
have to do in life and free us to do the more exciting and interesting pieces. Where do you fit in this perspective, and how is the school dealing with it? I'm sure you haven't banned artificial intelligence
We
all
haven't.
the classes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we've been working with our faculty to think about ways that they can move towards it. To your point, John, I think that a typical assignment could be changed from do this problem set to do this problem set and then run it through ChatGPT and see how those answers compare. And then we'll talk about it in class.
Right.
And what thing that we've seen is faculty who maybe when ChatGPT first came out put maybe an exam through ChatGPT last year and maybe it got a C. This year it's getting like an A minus. And I think that's the thing that's made faculty realize we have to address this. And so that we've actually started having those conversations. We have a task force on not on chat GPT, but on just ethics in general, because I think the risk is unless we address it, students will look at chat GPT the way they look at Google. I can just Google it. I can just chat GPT it. And so we have to say, how do we incorporate this in and not make things chat GPT, you know, defended against, but just understands what things should we be doing. So for example, we're actually looking at our essay that we require in our application, and how do we make it in a way that's about somebody's individual story. And so we're going to ask someone to tell their story about personal perseverance. How did you persevere? We know business school is going to be difficult, and how did you personally persevere? And you could certainly put something in chat GPT, but ultimately you've got to tell your story. And
That's
so I
true.
think that's what we're challenging our faculty to do with their assignments is how do you tell your own personally unique story? And switch some things that would be normally assignment you do outside of class, do it in class. But I think this moving towards chat GPT has got to be the way we do it, because we know students are going to be using it. It's just having a common understanding of how it can and should be used.
So, Gary, what's your best advice for someone who wants to pursue an MBA today?
I think to think about why they want to get the MBA. Too many times our students today are very transactional, and we have to think about how they extend this beyond. It's very easy to say, okay, this is how much it costs to go. This is what the jobs people get when they get out. And so if I play this a certain way, then it works out for me. But ultimately, I think every move I've been able to make is based on me getting an MBA, and I got that 30 years ago. And so we want students to be thinking, and prospective students to be thinking, how is this going to transform me? Not how is it going to get me the next job? Because you can always get that job out of business school, but that's not going to be your most important job. And so if you think, which school is going to enable me to transform myself into what's going to happen in the future that I'm prepared for, that I don't even know about. If they can connect those dots, then they'll pick the right school for them.
Yeah, that's really true. Now, Gary, what advice do you have for students who would be interested in UCLA's MBA? Certainly, they should visit the school.
They should definitely visit the school, and certainly if they reach out, we can connect them to a student. We have so many, students that are willing to do tours. Once they engage with kind of the community, they'll be able to get all the answers they need. And that's to your point earlier. The student enthusiasm is so great that they're waiting. For students, hey, I want to know more about Anderson. And so contacting the school is the first step. Certainly coming to visit is great, but certainly knowing that people all over the world and global, that's not always possible. Technology, like Zoom is enables to reach out to people in a more intimate way than email. And so I think the first step is really just to connect with us. And we have mailing lists that people can get on where they can find out what's happening at Anderson. So it's not too easy, not too hard to connect with us.
All right, Gary. Don't you regret your MBA from NYU Stern?
So you know my background.
You earned it at UCLA.
It's funny. I was such a New Yorker, and
You are.
I was thinking, where do I go to business school? And I was just either, do I apply to NYU? Do I apply to Columbia? And I felt like I just had one good application in me, so I just applied to NYU. I wasn't thinking in anything outside of New York City,
That's funny.
and I was so close. And funny thing is, I love going back to New York, but I don't need the energy on a constant everyday basis. I like the flexibility of getting the energy when I want to, which you can do out here. But I do think this whole thing about, I was pretty young when I got my MBA. I was in my mid-20s. And, our students today are way more mature. They have had way more work experience. And it's a different way to grind now. You need to grind, but also
Sure.
repair. And I think that's why getting an MBA out here provides you that natural balance. And that's why students end up being so happy.
And I have to say, there is a serenity in being on your campus. So even though you're an incredibly busy, often frenetic
Yeah.
city,
Yeah.
a lot of traffic, when you're on the campus, particularly at the Anderson Quad,
Yeah.
I don't, there's a very good vibe. It's
Yeah.
very peaceful to me. I don't know.
No, you're right. It's just that I feel blessed that every day I get to walk on this beautiful campus,
Yeah.
and just feel that energy from the student population. You're exactly right. And certainly most days it's sunny, and so that doesn't hurt either. But no, there's good energy here. And just by being outside and being around where students are, it's a unique space.
All right, Gary, it's been a pleasure as always.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you for the time. I enjoyed talking with you as always as well. And I look forward to next time.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so there's the former captain of the debate team at Syracuse who got his MBA at Stern, but he's a total believer in UCLA's Anderson School of Management, and you should be too. Gary, thank you.
Thank you,
All
John.
right, this is John Burr with Poets and Quants. You've been watching our Center Court session on UCLA's Anderson School of Management.